Outside a Moscow police station, protesters demand Alexei Navalny's release. Inside, the Kremlin's chief critic found himself in front of a judge in a hastily convened court and urged his supporters to take to the streets against Vladimir Putin. Navalny was detained on arrival from Berlin on Sunday, arrested for breaking parole on a suspended sentence. The reason he missed his parole hearing is because he was in a coma after being poisoned with the Novichok nerve agent. Doctors say he should still be resting and recovering from the attack, which many countries believe was sanctioned by the Kremlin. Outside the police station, his lawyers and journalists were denied entry into the impromptu court.
Another night of unrest in Tunisia. Young protesters raging against unemployment, poverty and police brutality in some of the country's poorest neighborhoods. They say they have nothing left to lose. Even the threat of the coronavirus pandemic and a curfew aren't enough to keep them at home. For some, the gains of the Arab Spring, which led to the ouster of former President Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali 10 years ago, seemed like a distant memory. The president visited one of the cities near the capital and called for calm. The government has deployed army across several cities. Hundreds of people have been arrested, mostly teenagers. The rights group Amnesty International has warned against the use of excessive force. For now, these protesters have vowed to stay on the streets.
Moving on, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's posters were seen at protests in Pakistan's southern Sindh province. The posters read "Sindh wants freedom from Pakistan." Sindhudesh freedom movement's posters were also seen as demonstrators raised slogans demanding a separate country at the pro-freedom rally in Pakistan's Sindh province. The protests were a part of a rally to mark the 117th birth of anniversary of James Syed, who was a vocal proponent of Sindhudesh, or a separate country for the province. The demonstrators are now seeking intervention of world leaders, and the protest rally had pictures of several other world leaders as well, including US President-elect Joe Biden, Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani, Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, France's Macron, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia Mohammed bin Salman, Russian President Vladimir Putin and German Chancellor Angela Merkel.
Donald Trump has ordered US agencies to assess the risks posed by Chinese-made drones in government fleets. The executive order requires the bodies to outline steps to mitigate any risks, including the removal of drones from federal service. Last month, the Commerce Department added China's SZ-DJI technology to the US government's economic blacklist. The world's largest maker of drones had no immediate comment on the new executive order. In January last year, the US Interior Department grounded its fleet of about 800 Chinese-made drones. Later in the year, it ordered a halt to any further purchases of such devices. The Department of Homeland Security has also warned US companies on risks from Chinese drones. It says officials have strong concerns that foreign intelligence agencies could be given unfettered access to data from drones.
Starting with news from Uganda, amid growing international concern about the recently concluded Uganda presidential election that saw three-decade incumbent Yoweri Museveni become the country's president again. Opposition leader Bobi Wine now says that he is worried for his life and has appealed for help.
We have run short of food supplies, but when my wife tried to go to our garden to pick food, she was assaulted by the military. The only practical plan now is to inform the world, to see that fellow citizens of the world can help us.
Heavily armed military and police have barricaded the road to Bobi Wine's house. No one allowed to come in or go out, and the police spokesperson has claimed that the National Unity Platform office had been cordoned off for security reasons.
Well, Maurice and Christine, police made about 30 arrests here tonight, some for obstructing traffic. The NYPD says 10 officers were injured. They do not have a count for protester injuries. As you can see, things have significantly calmed down here, but it was a much different scene just over an hour ago.
If you remain in the roadway and refuse to utilize the sidewalk, you will be placed under arrest.
A tense standoff turned violent by City Hall after hundreds of Black Liberation protesters marched over the Brooklyn Bridge and were met by police. CBS 2 cameras were rolling as officers warned the crowd to move out of the street. The protesters did not, and officers moved in swiftly, seemingly pushing into the crowd as they began making arrests. Bicycles and barricades knocked around in the scuffle. Some people pushed to the ground and others dragged away by officers with zip ties. This began as a march from Brooklyn in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Moving on now, Indonesia has been battling back-to-back disasters from earthquake to floods. Tens of thousands of people have continued to flee the country's South Kalimantan state as heavy rains continue for the 10th consecutive day. This is the worst flooding in the region in 50 years. Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited the disaster-hit province. At least 15 people have been killed in the floods, which has affected over 10 districts and cities.
Ini di dalam juga kan ya?